Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. In the divine presence of the Almighty, in the equally divine presence of my Guru Hari, Pramukh Swami Maharaj, Guru Hari Mahan Swami Maharaj, in the most protective presence of the rulers of UAE, whose love and affection I have felt to the core of my heart in the most protective presence of the rulers. Many times I have been asked that is tolerance just a noun in the UAE? I stand before you as a living proof that tolerance here is not just a noun, it's a verb. We see it in action. It is not just a beautiful word. The video that you have seen is a result of a deep civilization and deep values that all of us experience. I know many of you have been staying in this beautiful land and in the hearts of the people for more than a few generations. And it is one of the reasons that you do not want to go back to your homeland because you have made this your home. And that's why a business meet of amazing proportions has been organized today. Let me first congratulate the organizers for creating this opportunity in these times of difficulty. Of course, we all know the last 2 years have been difficult. It's almost like shift delete. We had 2020 on calendar, but not in our life. We've had 2021, and yet we cannot remember it. But that does not give us a chance or a reason to feel low or sad. So today, as you have organized a business meet, most of you are here to seek opportunities. But let me also remind you, in a world of opportunities, the greater things that rely upon us are responsibilities. With great opportunity comes great responsibility. We have heard that business is built on trust. Vishwase vahano chale. Businesses are built on trust. But I still remember one small anecdote that one wise man had told me, that once there was a billionaire grandfather, and he always used to lecture his grandson that one day when you grow up to become a great businessman, a great trader, then you will realize the secrets of success. The little boy once insisted, he was just about 4 or 5 years old, and he insisted to his grandfather that, why don't you teach me the secret of success? So the grandfather said, I'll just teach you once, and you have to learn it for life. The boy agreed. So one fine night, it was pitch dark, the grandfather, with a little bit of light, asked that little boy to stand on top of a wall which was about 10 feet to 12 feet high. As the boy climbed that wall, he said, business is about climbing great heights. And as the boy stood on that wall, and the grandfather said, that can you see me? He said, yes. Do you know who I am? He said, yes, you're my grandfather. Do you think that I love you? He said, yes. Do you trust me? Yes. Then he switched off the light. Pitch dark. And then the grandfather said that jump business is about taking risks and jumping, even in darkness. The boy whispered, he said, but granddad, I can't see you. He says, so what, you can't see me, can you hear me? He says, I can hear you. Can you hear the direction of the voice? I can. So trust me and jump. In that darkness, that boy took the leap of faith. And he didn't catch him. He dropped to the ground and the boy started crying. The grandfather said, lesson number 1, trust nobody. But I want to ask you that when trade begins with trust, and we have complicated it, super complicated it, where we gather in such conferences, but most of us are trying to measure each other with suspicion and not trust. So let this conference, Rahulji, be different. Let it be a conference of trust. That's how trade will begin. But before, I know trade begins with trust, but it is only sustained by truth. So 2 words from this conference. Of course, the title of the conference may be Learn, Unlearn, and Relearn. I want you to just learn trust, unlearn untruth, and relearn truth and trust. If these 3 things are there flowing through your mind, flowing through your veins, flowing through your heart, trade will become second nature. Let me give you a short history of trade. I am a monk. I have nothing to do with trade. That's why I have a reason that I can really take you through the short journey of trade. Initially, trade began with need and necessity. If you had something and you needed something else, and somebody needed something that you had, we bartered. It was the purest form of trust and trade. You got what you want, and they got what they want, and that's how initially it started with bartering. But when we started manufacturing, when we started creating, we needed a market which was perhaps not there. Now, most of our business is to do with luxuries and not needs. Any first invention is a necessity. The new versions are luxuries. How many times we change our mobiles? While we've not hardly used 5% of the older version, we still want the newer version. Why? Because trade is now focused on creating markets. So first, let me tell you, initially it was quantity. If you had a certain quantity and somebody else needed, you were at the top of your trade. Initially, everything is about having quantity. But then when there is so much of the same quantity, your focus shifts on what? Quality. I met a wise man in London a few years back, and he told me, Swami, in this entire world of rice, I'm still the king. I said, how can you still be the king? Where everybody produces rice. He said, well, Swami, the rice I produced is quality rice. And there is never a no need of quality. Even amongst an abundance of cars, the cars which are the hallmark of quality continue to sell at the highest prices. So first, trade was focused on what? Quantity. When we have abundance of something, it is shifting to what? Quality. But I also want to tell you that as the world shifts, there is something else that has been introduced in the world of business. I was in America, and we had gone to meet the owners of Salesforce. When we were sitting, suddenly one man entered, and after talking to us, he gave us his card. And I said, excuse me, so who are you? He says, Swamiji, I am the chief of equality. I said, what's equality to do with business? He said, don't you know? I said, I don't know. I know about quantity. I know about quality. Quantity quality sells, but equality? He said, well, we have learned that people are our resources, not the product. And to make sure that people work best, there should be an environment of equality. If somebody feels that he or she has not been treated well because of inequality, that performance decreases, and when 1,000 people's performance decreases, our product decreases. When our product decreases, our profits decrease. So equality is perhaps more important than quality. Understand, when you are dealing with products and people, you have to deal with these sensitive ideals and ideas of people's hearts. So quantity, remember that word which you do. Quality, remember that as well. Equality is what really creates an environment and sustainability. But that doesn't end there. A few years back, to meet our spiritual guru, Prabhu Swami, one man who was tipped to be the president of an international multinational company that deals in billions and billions of dollars. So he came to meet us, the monks. And with him, this one American man was always with him like a shadow. And I said, even while we are talking in Gujarati, that American man is still sitting. So I asked that gentleman, I said, does he understand Gujarati? He says, no. I said, why does he keep sitting in every meeting that we do? He says, Swami, he has been employed by our company. I said, but you are the vice president. And what does he do? He said, his name is Frank. I said, okay. So I said, what does Frank do? He said, he's my stability secretary. I said, what do you mean by stability secretary? He says, Swamiji, I take decisions which will affect millions of people, which will actually affect billions of dollars. So the company has appointed for $500,000 a stability secretary who keeps watching my moods. So if I've had a bad call from my wife, he'll say, hey, don't worry, it's okay, this happens to everybody, be calm, don't worry. So I don't make a wrong decision. This man's job is to manage my moods and keep me stable. Business has moved from quantity to quality to equality to stability. How often, if your mind is not stable, how often have we made wrong decisions which have affected the lives of thousands? Is not your mind as important as your product? Of course it is. So slowly as we've moved along, but one of the most astonishing facts I discovered in Dubai. You know that His Highness the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, with his greatest generosity, has gifted us free land to build the first traditional Hindu temple in this land. He has changed the history of civilization. It is not us. People congratulate me and us. No, we have been building temples for thousands of years. It is the rulers of this nation that have changed the history of civilization. With the warmth that they have invited us. But it does not just end there. If you discover and taste love in the highest authorities, but if you don't discover the same love on the streets of UAE, then there is a paradox. But I want to tell you, once we were in Dubai Customs, explaining to everybody, the leaders and the heads, of what the temple is, how it's going to bring harmony, the love it's promoting. Then soon after our meeting was finished, because a lot of our stone is coming from India, Italy, and we are carving them. So we needed help and assistance. Soon after our meeting, wait for this, one man stood up, a local Arab, and he gave me his card. I said, excuse me, so what do you do? He said, Swamiji, Your Holiness, I am the happiness officer. I said, a happiness officer? He says, yes, my role is to keep you happy and to keep the authorities happy, to make sure that you obey the rules and they don't have to ask you many times. My role is to keep everybody happy. I wanted to tell you, Have we lost the idea that happiness is as important or more important than wealth? Well-being. We want to create wealth, but we should also create well-being. I want to tell you that from quantity to quality to equality to stability, at the end of the day, we should all be happy. It's no use being a billionaire grandfather who trusts nobody. He's perhaps the miserable of the lot. I would rather have trust and truth. I would rather grow beyond. So my only prayer in this conference for all of you is trust everybody in here. Once you start business, then honor that trust with trade and truth. Once you do that, you will be able to generate happiness within yourself and around yourself. Just don't be dealers of products, also be dealers of hope and happiness. Just don't accumulate wealth, also accumulate faith and love. When we do that, we become a little different. I'd like to leave you with a story which Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, the finest president that India has ever had, a greatest scientist who created our first nuclear bomb and who said it should never be used. You understand, he believed in peace, but one thing he told me, that tell everybody, once you have love in your heart, once you have peace in your heart, once you have hope and happiness, then teach your children this story that I want to leave you behind with. That when you have a dream and when you believe in that dream, then focus on it. Once there was a colony of mice, rats. We all know, where do the rats live? On the ground or underground? They cannot live anywhere else. A big, huge estate developer bought that land. And all these rats, which were homeless now, they were waiting outside. They saw their own homes dug out. So as buildings started being built, the first floor, the second floor, the third, the fourth, it was a huge skyscraper. All the rats gathered together and said, hey, what's going on up there? The traditional family members told them that, look, our goal and our life is on the ground or below the ground. Don't think above the ground. Still, the little young rats, the little young mice who were hopeful and dreamt, they say, hey, but there must be something up there. We need to find out. Again, the elderly, the family members, the traditionalists, they kept saying, hey, all our generations have lived on the ground and underground. There is nothing up there. Still, a group of 10, 20 to 30 young, brave, bold, courageous mice, they decided to climb. All these heroes which were going up, the older family members came up and garlanded them. They prayed for them that, okay, you are going into some venture. You're going to explore. Go ahead. Our prayers are with you. But don't go too far. You know, when you are sending your children to study abroad, or when your parents sent you here, they said, yeah, go, but don't go too far. Be within our reach. Be within our hearts. So all these elderly mice were advising the young, brave ones who were going up. While they climbed the first or the second floor, there were shouts from below. How is it up there? And those mice who tried to answer, everything is okay, but it's still too high and we feel a little scared. Again, their fathers and mothers said, come back, that's enough. Don't go, come back. Even those who were brave, who reached the fourth or the fifth floor, some had disease spells and fell down. Some got injured, some got wounded. Still, there were 5, 6 mice, they were going up and up and up. There were shouts from below, said, now it's enough, come back. Most of the mice returned back, but there was one mouse. He went up and up and up and up, reached the top. It was a huge explosion of celebration. That is one man who has conquered the skyscraper. And when he returned back, he came to a hero's welcome, achieving so much. And when everybody gathered, they found out that this was the only mouse who was deaf. Because he could not hear the sound and the noises of the earth, he reached somewhere. I pray, once you are inspired, once you have that dream, once you have truth and trust, be deaf to the noises of the world. Success is awaiting you. God will guide you. Once again, I thank Rahul Tulpaleji. Can you please stand up? It is because of one man's love that I stand before you. What a great gentleman. And my prayers for all the dignitaries here today. Thank you for giving us so much love. We feel at home here. Jai Swaminarayan. Thank you very much.